Good afternoon. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Finance, Budget, and Personnel Committee for Tuesday, August the 15th. Number 2, identify any potential conflicts of interest. Anybody? All right. 3, citizens' comments. Are you speaking during citizens' comments, Mr. Barr?
Yes, I am. I'm speaking as a citizen.
All right, I'll recognize you, hon. Go ahead.
Thank you. It occurred to me sitting up here, this is probably the last public meeting, I'm guessing, for Pete Fletty, our fire chief, unless I miscalculated here. And I just want to take a second to publicly recognize and thank you. This is one of the most honorable, hardworking, responsible, complete person that you'll see in terms of being a team player with other staff that you'll find. And I know you've been here a lot longer than I have. I've been here 12 years. You've been here twice that. But you've just done a marvelous job. The work you've done will not be forgotten and you will be missed. So I just want to thank you and, just wish you all the best as you head off to Onalaska.
Yes. Well said, Steve. All right, any other citizens? Citizens, okay, we're going to move on from citizens' comments to number 4, consent agenda, minutes of the August 1st, 2023 meeting, bills and payroll. What's your pleasure? Let's have
Move to approve.
Okay, Natasha has moved and Ed is second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, like signs?
Aye.
Seeing none? Sorry, Andrew, I jumped the gun a little. I gotta move this.
Oh, no, you're all good. Aye.
Okay, where did we leave off here? Okay, there were no items removed, so we're gonna skip over number 5. Number 6, request to recommend council approval for an annual transfer of funds from the general fund budget to the EMS fund budget to fund 3 firefighter/paramedic positions presented by Pete Fletty, Fire Chief.
Yeah, thank you all for everything. Much appreciated. Thank you. Moving into this topic, we've had 3 positions that have been sitting vacant in 2023 in our budget. In the 2024 budget, these positions are still in there as vacant positions, but they are in the EMS Enterprise Fund. Knowing these positions cannot be filled, with the funding in the EMS Enterprise Fund without some help, I'm asking that the funding for 3 firefighter paramedic positions be transferred from the general fund into the EMS Enterprise Fund annually. Based on our current knowledge, we all know that the EMS Fund can't sustain these personnel by itself. It was a large contributor to the EMS financial issues that we had a year or 2 ago. As a result, we decided to hold off on hiring any of the vacancies in 2022, and those remained unfilled in 2023 as well. They are still technically in the budget as vacant positions for 2024, and I'd like to see those get filled for 2024. The Police and Fire Commission, the Common Council, and Marshfield Fire and Rescue Department staff agreed that these positions last year needed to be filled in the form of a unanimous vote on all 3 levels for going to referendum to get these positions filled. I think at that point it was recognized that due to the increasing call volume and the speed at which fires burn nowadays, they double in size every 30 seconds, that we need additional staff, or at least to fill these 3 vacant positions. On top of that, I think we all agreed to go for 9 total positions. And ultimately, we all know that the referendum failed by a margin of 71 votes out of 6,000 votes cast. Again, based on the EMS Enterprise Fund's projections for 2024, I think we can all agree that funding these 3 positions without any help cannot be done in that budget. Again, focusing solely on the 3 vacant positions, I suggest the funding that these positions annually be transferring money from the general fund into the EMS Enterprise Fund. This does 2 different things. It provides a means to fill the 3 vacancies, but it also displays to the townships who already pay a fee for the ambulance service that the city of Marshfield is also contributing towards the ambulance service. The city of Marshfield will be receiving an additional $1 million plus in shared revenue. And this is that supplemental shared revenue that we've all heard about from the state of Wisconsin in 2024. At the 2023 Wisconsin State Fire Chiefs Association, Representative State Rep Tony Kurtz actually spoke at that meeting. And his statement to the fire chiefs was pretty clear. He stated that the increase in shared revenue was intended to be allocated for public safety. Public safety meaning police, fire, EMS, public works, courts, and other areas. Based on the calculations I received from the finance department, it will cost about $312,000 to fill the 3 vacant positions, including salary, wages, and benefits. And as you recall, again, we just had our busiest year on record, 4,074 calls for service this year. Looking at the numbers, we're on pace for our second busiest call volume ever. Looking further down the road again, we talked about this last year at the referendum that I think we do need to continue to explore other means of adding additional 3 to 6 personnel beyond the 3 positions currently vacant. My recommendation moving forward for those 3 to 6 personnel would be going back to referendum in 2024. We also have the SAFER grant application out there, which is due at the very latest to be announced by September 30th. So we should be hearing something hopefully very soon on that. At the PFC meeting on July 20th, 2023, I recommended moving the 3 vacant firefighter paramedic positions from the EMS Enterprise Fund to the Fire Protection Fund. I thought this would be the easiest way to do this. And that motion was approved unanimously. However, after that meeting, Steve reached out and Jennifer had a different means that I've described tonight. That would be that annual transfer from the general fund into the EMS Enterprise Fund and leaving those positions right where they're at. So at the August PFC meeting, I moved that idea forward to the PFC, and they were all unanimous in agreement with that as well. So with that, I'll take any questions, but I do request to recommend council approval for an annual transfer of funds from the general fund budget to the EMS fund budget to fund 3 firefighter paramedic positions. I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Natasha, you're up first.
This is actually a question for Jennifer.
We should have a motion before we start.
Okay, I move to approve.
So we have a motion. Is there a second? We have a second by Andrew. Okay, Natasha, now.
I'm wondering if the SAFER grant, this is just an idea, that's why I'm asking. If the SAFER grant is approved, would there be a way for the $300, can we kind of bank that into like a fund that we can't use so that when the SAFER grant runs out, we might actually have some funds built up to help us?
We can establish a reserve in the general fund. It would be an assigned or committed reserve by council where we could set aside $300,000 each year until that SAFER grant expired, should we be successful there. And then we can draw on what we've saved and then ongoing revenues thereafter.
Thank you. Is that it for you? Okay, Ed?
Thank you. I read your proposal or your letter, and it raises some questions. And the first one is the first thing is that this 311,000, 312,000, whatever it turns out to be, it sort of just magically appears. It basically, you haven't identified where the source of that money is going to come from. Where's the source of that original 300,000 that is going to get into the general fund, that is going to get into the other one? Or are you saying that you're taking it from fund balance?
My recommendation is that the funding source would be the supplemental shared revenue increase that we're going to see next year in 2024.
So, okay, so I agree that there is,
okay.
There was a big sigh of relief when this supplemental funding was passed, because aid and assistance for EMS was definitely a legislative goal. It was a legislative primary to do. So I don't have any problem with that. Why do you want us to do it now? when we haven't received that. And I guess even, I think coming up in just the next week or so, we're supposed to learn what the set-asides are supposed to be. Is that correct?
Say that one more time, the what's?
The set-asides for EMS. There was some talk that the legislature was actually saying, okay, if we're getting 1.2 million more in shared revenues than we got before, a certain amount of it would be set aside for EMS. Do we know what that number is?
We don't know what that number is right now. Not that I know of anyway.
So wouldn't it be more prudent to wait until we know what those numbers are and what the final number on the shared revenue increase is? The plan, I see what you're trying to do, trying to basically say that the council has put this set aside, almost an entitlement there. And so every year that money, that 317,000 or whatever it is, would be earmarked, especially for the EMS.
Right. I guess why I presented this now is looking at the 2024 budget when we were developing that, and knowing that the shared revenue is there already. If it's going to be 312,000 versus if we get an additional 50,000 for EMS, I guess I know a portion of that money. The EMS supplemental part of this is not, from what we've learned, at least at the League of Municipalities meetings on this, it's not going to be for $300,000. And we know that for sure.
One last thing to you. Yeah, out of that, I think we had a discussion about this during the discussion on the referendum. It takes approximately $102,000 to outfit each firefighter or EMS firefighter. And what we were saying was that, yes, but that didn't include, that was salary and benefits, but it didn't include the turnout gear. So the 317 or 300, whatever, does that include the turnout gear? Because that was another $30,000 or $40,000 as I understood it.
Yeah, so it's about, let me think what it is, outfit. It's about $4,000, $3,500 to outfit each firefighter with turnout gear. We do also have some money in the CIP for 2024 in case the Safer grant does come to fruition to outfit them with radios, and that was another larger expense. So that money's already kind of built into the CIP for 9 firefighters. Certainly, if the Safer grant is not successful, we do have money built into the CIP right now to cover those costs.
And one last thing, we got there's an email circle going around with Mr. Bard right now. Basically, he's asking what the priorities of the council are for the next budget. I mean, I can see this presentation and your letter as going a long way into establishing a priority for 2024 funds to EMS, but I can't see why we have to do it tonight, now, here, everything all at once, all at one time, whatever. So I think that's what I'd like to do. I'd like to wait until the numbers are known. Maybe bring it to a council meeting as a priority for the budget process itself.
Steve, go ahead.
And I appreciate that concern as well. But if you think back to when we had the conversation, and they were gut-wrenching conversations about where we were at with the fire and EMS staffing issue, and that's before we actually went to the referendum. It seemed to me that the desire of the council was, if we could find a way to finance getting the 3 vacant positions refilled, even if we never went beyond that. And certainly this opportunity, of which this money is intended by the state largely to go for fire, EMS, and police and related services, would fit into that. That's why I think it's an appropriate request. Not trying to put a mark on what has to happen in the budget process. That's obviously up to the council, but this seemed like something we wanted to see if there was support in including this in to the budget with the transfer coming from general fund, because it seemed like getting us back to where we were baseline in 2021 was something the council supported at that point, even as we put the referendum up for consideration.
Natasha?
Did you want to?
Ed, did you have something?
Go and then I.
Yeah, I just, the only thing I had was, obviously, doing this now, we would reduce the fund balance by 300 and some odd thousand, whatever it happens to be. And basically, we don't know what's going to happen with the court cases coming up. We don't know anything about where we're going to be financially at the end of the year, except that if we do this, we're going to be $300,000 shorter than we were. That's why I would urge great caution and great discernation over this.
Pete, could you speak to the timetable, as to what you'd be looking at? I know you won't be here anymore, but as far as filling these vacant positions, if support comes from the committee and council?
Right, so my intent was to have these filled in 2024, not immediately. I don't know if there was some confusion there, but I'm looking at the 2024 budget.
That's why I was asking, because I knew that that's what was your intent.
Right.
I just felt a sense of immediacy about, and from your memo, I thought it was immediate.
Yeah, my year meant 2024. That's what I was trying to explain as we're looking at the 2024 budget. How do we fit these 3 vacancies and get these filled moving forward? Yep, not immediate.
I'm sorry, Natasha, I'll finish, but basically the benefit of earmarking it for the 2024 budget is that we can be assured that it's going to be there, and we will know that it's not going to reduce our general fund. It's going to reduce the amount of money we receive from the increased state aids.
Yes.
Okay, that's my only. I'm not trying to be difficult about this, which is what I usually do. But the point is, I just don't want to earmark money that might be taken from the 2023 budget.
Right. The whole point of this too was to kind of get out ahead of when we start talking about the 2024 budget as a council. I just wanted to make this known that I wanted this out there and wanted these 3 positions filled, and I think there's a necessity for it.
Quite frankly, you wanted to know if it was okay to submit this as a budget proposal.
Correct.
So, I mean, that's kind of how we got here.
Okay. Natasha and then Andrew.
So I would agree with Steve that the council that voted for the referendum definitely said these positions, having them filled, is important. Of course, we do have a slightly new council right now, but I personally would say yes, filling these 3 positions with your call volume and the fact that most of the call volume has to do with ambulance and then also with really fast, hot fires. I would say yes, that should be a priority. I guess I would feel comfortable having this go to council and having a discussion with council to say, do all 10 of you agree that if we were to receive $1 million, the first group that gets this cut is the 3 firefighter EMS positions? I think that would be a valid thing to do. I do wonder if we should amend the motion to say that this is contingent on us receiving the funds. I don't know if that matters if it's in the 2024 budget, and I don't know if we need to amend that motion, just saying contingent on the fact that we actually do receive the shared revenue that's promised.
Okay, so we have an amendment to the motion. Do I have a second?
Are you making the amendment or asking if you?
Well, I was sort of asking. I don't know if anyone thinks that amendment is important. It's not important for the budget.
I don't think so.
Okay.
The state has informed us that we are receiving a distribution with an amount. So we get those notices for all of our shared revenues, and this is included in that. So it is a safe number to move forward with.
So you're okay? Okay. Andrew, it's your turn.
Okay, thank you. I hope I'm not nitpicking here, because that is definitely not what I'm trying to do here, but mainly for clarity's sake here, you're saying that we're asking for an annual transfer of funds from the general fund to the EMS enterprise fund So are we going to have to do this every single year, this request, or is this something that if we were to grant at Common Council would be going on in perpetuity until we change it?
It would be an annual thing. All of our shared revenue for municipal and county aid goes into the general fund upon receipt. And so it displays the fact that the general fund is supporting the EMS fund. So if alternatively, we could receive it directly into the EMS fund, but it doesn't show up as a contribution from the general fund. So we felt it's important to display in our ledgers that we are actually receiving it into the general fund, and the general fund is turning around and supporting the EMS fund with the transfer.
Okay, so this would be budgeted. It's just a matter of making sure we can trace our transactions.
Correct.
Awesome, thank you.
Ed?
Okay, so if I'm not mistaken, what we just heard him say, or them say, is it's 3 firefighters per year. It's not the same 3 you're funding. You want three new ones in 24, 3 new ones in 25, and 3 new ones in 26. Is that correct?
No.
Good.
No, this is talking about 2024 and funding those moving forward, those 3 positions.
So the assumption would be that money would be there every year, but you would continue to have those same firemen firefighters, EMTs, unless one of them resigned, and then you would replace that person. You're not adding 3 next year, 3. It would just constantly be refunding those 3 people.
Yeah, that was the intent.
Yeah, think back to thank you. Think back to the wording on the referendum, which said to recruit, hire, and maintain those people on staff. It'd be very short-sighted had that referendum passed. We'd taken people on and a year later let them go. So anything could always break loose with the budget in future years. We know that, and the council is one who determines annual budgets. But this is to say that the intent is that all things being equal, this would be an annual transfer to maintain those 3 positions.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Brian.
Shouldn't just go to council. I mean, we have 5 of us here and we're approving this to put it in the budget for 2024, in which the whole council is going to discuss that in 2 months, 3 months. What if the council decides to remove it then? Shouldn't this discussion and this presentation, it's a good presentation and I have no problem with it, but shouldn't it go in front of all 10 of the council members? Right now, if we approve it right now, it's going to go on the consent agenda. If someone doesn't pull it out, it's just going to go.
A couple things. That's a good point. We struggle at staff level sometimes about what can go straight to the council because half of the body doesn't see this unless they watch the videos, and even then they're not participating. So it's a good point. And you're right, the consent agenda usually just sails through without a lot of discussion. But this is to say that this body, as the one that deals with the finance and personnel issues, is supportive of the fire chief putting this in the budget with the understanding that it will be to transfer money from the general fund to cover it. Ultimately, the budget discussions in October, you may do all sorts of things. You may actually deep six this. I hope not. But this is to say that you are authorizing that the budget you see will include this, which is abnormal, but the way we would cover it is with a general fund transfer to cover those 3 positions.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Okay, I'm going to just have a couple of things that I want to have clarified, and I tend to agree with Brian on his last point. I think that this is something the entire council, all 10 people, should be deciding on, and I don't want it just to skate through on the approved agenda. So I don't know what we do to make that happen. If we need to table it here and move it to the council meeting on next Tuesday. Jessica?
Yeah, you can certainly do that. You won't be here anymore to present, Pete, I would assume.
I won't. No.
But we can certainly find a way to present that and discuss it with the whole council. It's an important issue, and we're talking about $300,000 in general fund money, so I certainly get the concern. I guess I was thinking that this wasn't final, since you're going to be deciding on the whole budget later in the year, but we can certainly make that a separate agenda item if you'd like.
Do we need so what do we need to do, Jessica, for that to occur? Because we do have a motion and a second.
You have a motion and a second, and I think if you approve this motion this evening, you've made your intent clear that you want this as a separate agenda item at the council next week and not part of consent agenda. And I think that's enough direction for us to make that happen.
Okay, so that's one point. I do want to say that, I did talk about the shared revenue in detail with my husband, who I think most of you know is with the state. And he did very adamantly remind me that it was absolutely the intention of the state that at least a certain percentage of this go to public safety. So he was very clear about that with me too. Not that we were arguing it out. He was just telling me the intention and how the discussions had gone at the state level when they discussed shared revenue. So I do feel like I needed to point that out. He thought there was actually going to be a percentage assigned, but wasn't 100% sure, couldn't tell me that for certain. So I wanted to make that point. And then to Ed's point, I kind of have the same feeling. Like I feel like, well, this is already August. The budget starts, we start talks in October. That's not that far away. If it went to the council, it'd be the first reading, it'd be the second reading. And I do worry about, a possible loss of a lot of revenue come mid-September when we go to court. So I share some of those concerns for sure. But I think that we'll have another shot at this when we take it to the council on next Tuesday, a week from today. So I think that, is there any further questions before I take a vote on this one? Anybody? All right, so the motion is to have this presented as a separate item to the Common Council a week from today. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, so that passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, buddy. All right, 7, request to recommend council approval to change the Parks and Rec Department office hours presented by Justin Casperson, Parks and Rec Director.
Good evening and thank you. Our staff kind of made a request to evaluate our department hours and perhaps make them more in line with current City Hall hours. Current Park and Rec office hours are Monday through Friday, 7:30 a.m. till 4:30 p.m. City Hall office hours are Monday through Thursday, 7:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. and then Friday, 7:30 a.m. till 12 p.m. Our staff feels that business is slow enough on Friday afternoons after 12 o'clock, and it makes sense to be more in line with City Hall because we often get the question or surprise that we're actually might be open on Friday afternoons. Our employees can make up the lost hours in a combination of ways similar to City Hall, either staying late, coming in early, working through lunch hours, or even working on Friday afternoons if need be. Either way, staff have to work 40 hours no matter what and have to be there during posted office hours. They also feel that they might be able to get some projects done without customer interruptions on Friday afternoons if it warrants. City administration or City Hall administration feel the new building hours are working well for them. They really haven't had any issues. I think the employees do value their Friday afternoons off and able to adjust their work hours to make whatever satisfactory work conditions or work hours are required. One of the things that we'll have to do is do a public announcement and make those changes known in our various locations, whether that's websites, buildings, brochures, publications. So we're making a recommendation to start at October 2nd, 2023. Our committee, our Park Rec Forestry Committee, did review and approve this at their July 12th meeting, so they do send along a positive recommendation. So our department is making a recommendation to change Park and Rec office hours to Monday through Thursday, 7:30 a.m. till 4:30 p.m., and then Friday, 7:30 a.m. till 12 noon, starting Monday, October 2nd.
Thank you, Justin. Do I have a motion?
Yeah, move to approve.
So I have a motion from Brian. Is there a second? A second from Natasha. Is there any questions? No, okay.
Yeah, I was opposed to this Friday afternoon off thing from when it was done for City Hall. And I may be old fashioned, but I think our job as servants of the people is to be here when they need us, to make ourselves available to them. So I'm going to vote against this. I really don't like this.
Okay, anybody else? Natasha?
I do think we need to recognize that flexible workplaces are becoming more and more important for employees. And I think that's one of the benefits of this. It also doesn't increase our cost. So, you know, as going through the employee satisfaction survey, one of our questions is, what can we do to improve the workplace without improving cost? And this is one of those things.
Thank you. Anybody else? Andrew?
Yep, thank you. Just one quick question here. So you mentioned that using Friday afternoons would be a good opportunity to tackle projects. How is that workload right now? I mean, are we behind? Do we have a lot of projects in the queue that just aren't getting finished because of interruptions, or how is that looking right now?
No, we're able to get our workloads done. It's not an issue. It's just that sometimes you need an hour or two of uninterrupted time to get things done. And our front office staff typically don't have an hour of uninterrupted time to get it done. So sometimes Friday afternoons might be a good time to tackle a project. Otherwise, they'll do it throughout the week or throughout the work week, and then bits and pieces take it on. So we are not behind on anything.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else have any questions? Justin, I just have one. Does your staff ever, I mean, aren't there times in the evenings that they have to be available for events anyway? And I know like your pool staff clearly is available, you know, until the pool closes, and it doesn't count them, but are there times when your staff have to go to events after business hours?
Yes, we have to be very flexible. Evenings, weekends, during the week, all the time. So we have staff that work weekends. Nikki Anderson's a good example of someone who usually on Friday nights has to work till 11 o'clock at night. So Friday afternoons is not going to be very beneficial for Nikki in the summer because she's working till 11. Amanda, our recreation manager who's overseeing the pool, she has to be there sometimes over the weekends. But they're salaried, so it doesn't really play into them. But it's not uncommon for us to be there evenings and weekends. Our buildings are still used evenings, weekends, so we still work with the customers on making sure they can pick up their keys in a timely fashion. And if they're not able to, for whatever reason, it's an emergency with their family, we're able to work with the police department and they're able to pick up their keys from the PD station. So that's been here before I started and it'll probably continue.
Yeah, and the only reason I asked that is I really did want the public to hear that, you know, the rec department, the employees there do work more than 40 hours in general. So even if we did this half day for them, I mean, please be understanding that they are out there all the time. They're working a lot more than 40 hours often. So I think I agree with Natasha. This is a benefit that doesn't cost us anything. It helps morale. It just, I think in general, when we got the employee survey, they listed this as one of their favorite benefits that the city gives. So I will be supporting that. Anything else, Steve?
Yeah, thank you. I agree with that statement, and I want to thank you for your comments as well, Natasha. From the recruitment and retention standpoint, Sarah and I talk about this all the time. It was huge to the people in this building to have this opportunity, and people are looking for obviously wages and health insurance and stuff like that. But these types of things make a difference when you're trying to attract and keep people. So I just wanted to share that as well.
All right. So with that, we do have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
That's a 4-1. Okay, so we are now at number 8. Request to recommend council approval to promote Tim Rasmussen to the position of street superintendent effective August 23rd, 2023, presented by Sarah Dressel, Human Resources Director.
Thank you.
So as everyone is aware, on May 23rd, Chris Hawley, who was the street superintendent, did put in his retirement notice, and his final day of work was on July 26th. Since then, Tim Rasmussen, who is the assistant street superintendent, has been appointed as the interim street superintendent. And prior to Chris's departure, he did do quite a bit of training for that position. So we did post the position, and I noticed that I did not put that in this memo, so I wanted to make sure I clarified. We did post the position both internally and externally. We were looking for any and all candidates that would be interested in the position. And Tim Rasmussen was our internal candidate for the position. Based on Tim's experience, years of service with the city of Marshfield overall, the decision was made to move forward with requesting the appointment of Tim Rasmussen to the street superintendent position. I did provide kind of an overview of Tim's experience that he has had throughout the city of Marshfield. And I have had, we all have had discussions with Tim about the position, and excuse me, if approved, Tim would become the street superintendent, which also would result in the need to backfill his position, which is the assistant street superintendent position. So as part of this memo as well, it is being requested to backfill that vacant position if this were to move forward. So at this time, staff is recommending that the Finance, Budget, and Personnel Committee approve to recommend council's appointment of Tim Rasmussen to the position of street superintendent effective August 23rd, 2023. And upon approval of Tim Rasmussen, authorization to begin the process of refilling the vacant assistant street superintendent position. I did include in the memo the assistant street superintendent position job description as it stands right now for review and comments as well. So I can answer any questions that you might have.
Okay. Are there any questions from the committee? Oh, we need a motion. I'm sorry. This little person whispering in my ear over here.
I move to approve.
So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
A second for purpose of discussion.
We have a second. So, okay. All right. We have a motion and a second. Discussion. Ed, you're up.
Okay, I am generally supportive of this. One thing, I don't believe that Tim has a complete background for the job, but basically what I'm concerned about is ability to prepare budgets and things of that nature, as well as maybe some courses in management. I would like to see a contingency there that within 1 year he complete at least 2 courses or seminars in management of budgets and management of people in general. I think his ability to improve himself, improve his skills, to take on new skills and everything, in his resume, that's outstanding. And that's the kind of initiative that we like to see, and we'd like to see it done well. And like to see that, the only thing I would like to see is, I'd like to see him get some formal education or formal tutoring in those 2 areas, because I think that's the only 2 areas he lacks in right now. Most of the other people were around long enough and were exposed to, they had some management responsibilities, they honed their skills where Tim hasn't actually had the time to do that yet. So that's my recommendation.
Okay. Anyone else have anything? Natasha, go ahead. Okay, I'll go first. I just wanted to ask a couple of questions because this was asked of me by somebody. They wanted to know, were there any external candidates?
There were
no
not.
external candidates. And was Tim the only internal candidate?
Yes.
Okay, because I wasn't 100% sure. I couldn't answer them without being sure. So that information is out there and okay. And that's all I had. It's just.
I would agree with Ed that as a body or as an organization, to come alongside people and say, hey, if there's any gaps in what you have been trained in order for this position, we will support you in being trained in those gaps. I think that's important. I think it prevents problems down the road. So I completely agree with that. I don't know how that works out. The motion is to hire, so I don't know how you do this contingent on that and stuff. But I think our recommendation that you would be hearing from us is we would very much support his training in any areas that HR or some other person would say, hey, these are areas where we need to shore you up.
I think one thing that I'll add to that piece, if it's all right.
Sure.
In preparation for Chris's departure, we have kind of started to talk through the budget process. And as you know, the finance department has kind of begun that process with staff. So what Chris did do is basically walked through the street department's budget as a whole, and about 75% of the budget was actually entered into this year's tentative budget by Tim. So he has kind of received, I would say, initial trainings on that, internally. Certainly, though, as part of a more formal onboarding process, now that I have Peggy as the HR generalist, there are some things that we're working through just in general when we're going to be hiring anyone into a new leadership position. A huge part of that is going to be just monitoring and making sure of progress with certain things. Part of it is the management side of things, so it would be like corrective action and just basic personnel type issues. The other would be making sure that critical parts of the job also are being addressed. So certainly it's going to be kind of built in and made sure that it does occur. The guidance, from this group is certainly something that we can note and make sure that we're like really focused on making sure that Tim is set up for success. Ultimately, that is, truly what we want for anyone that we're going to be hiring into any of our positions. So.
Thank you. Tom, do you want to add on?
As Sarah said, I worked with both Tim and Chris to make sure that the put in for the street division this year. Tim did a good job at it. And we have already started scheduling weekly meetings, discuss items that are taking place in his office. We want to support him any way we can to help him succeed in his new position.
Ed, go ahead.
Yeah, I see on our agenda, we're going to be going into closed session to discuss compensation. Mm-hmm. That might be a place where we can put incentives into play. So I will reserve any further comments till then.
Anybody else? So I just have one follow-up. I agree. I think budgeting is like one of the most difficult things, but I believe that we have a great mentor sitting right next to us. And she's always been offering her services to train us. And I'm confident that she will assist him if needed and when needed.
Of course.
All right, so we have a motion and we have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that passes. Okay. Number 9, request to refill 2 vacant part-time library circulation assistant positions, presented by Sarah Dressel, Human Resources Director.
Thank you. So Jill Porter, the library director, did receive 2 resignations for 2 part-time circulation staff members. And based on their departures and on workload, she is requesting to refill those 2 part-time circulation assistant vacancies. The number of hours that both of those positions would kind of combine and not exceed would be 30 hours overall, so they would not be benefited positions and would be classified as part-time. They are requesting this approval to refill by the library board on August 17th. And in speaking with Jill, they are shorthanded in this area as is, and she did not feel at all that there would be any opposition to filling those 2 vacant positions. So that's why we felt good about bringing it forth to this group for approval. So staff does recommend that the Finance, Budget, and Personnel Committee permit the library director to immediately advertise and begin attempting to fill vacancies for part-time circulation assistants. And as kind of a side note too, if at any point, let's just say the library board were to say, nope, it's very easy for us to remove any postings or anything like that. And we wouldn't be moving forward with a hire that quickly, so.
All right, thank you, Sarah. Ed?
Move to approve.
So we have a motion, we have a second by Brian. Are there any questions? Andrew?
Thank you. Just quick question here, mainly thinking ahead here. Were the resignations related and all, not in the sense of one to another, but was the reason for resigning in the similar vein?
One is moving to a different area, so it was more just a move. And then I am not certain of the other, to be honest, but it was not related.
Wonderful. Thank you much. That's all I had.
Anything else? So we do have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed, like sign. Seeing none, that passes. All right, number 10, request to review new job description for a zoning administrator / ordinance enforcement officer, presented by Sarah Dressel, Human Resources Director.
Thank you. So I'm kind of switching up and moving over to the lectern so that we can kind of go through a little bit of a slideshow here, just so that I can provide a little bit of context here. All right. So as part of the packet tonight, we've added a request for approval to move forward with the new job description for the position of zoning administrator / ordinance enforcement officer. This position would be a merged position of the associate planner, which is part of the development services group, and the ordinance enforcement officers, which is part of the police department. So just a bit of background on the 2 original positions. We have the ordinance enforcement officer position that is currently held by 2 individuals. They are in uniform for work, and much of their tasks and duties take place through the police department. And those duties include investigation and enforcement of animal complaint and violations, parking violations, permits, and a variety of other duties as assigned. As needed, they are also coming to City Hall to partner with the groups here, dependent on the situation. So development services and ordinance enforcement officers are familiar with each other and the tasks that they do complete. The associate planner position reports to currently the development services director position, and was an entry-level position within planning. I believe the original intent for that was to have someone in this position training and preparing for potentially someday becoming the city planner, kind of getting their feet wet within city planning overall. The duties included in that position are code enforcement, compliance for fences, signs, property maintenance, compliance, and customer service tasks like meeting up with citizens to discuss zoning questions or activities. The 2 positions are different, but yet similar in scope. So Pat Kilty in Development Services brought forth the idea to combine the roles based on the issues that his team has observed since the associate planner position has been vacant, and knowing that the associate planner position was removed for the 2023 budget year. Initially, we looked at the overall tasks of the associate planner and what might make sense to move into the ordinance enforcement officer's job descriptions. And based on initial discussions as a group, we did feel that it was enough positives to combining the two positions than there were negatives. So a meeting was set up with Chief Goering to pitch the idea and get initial feedback. With the chief's support, a larger group of individuals from the departments, including ordinance officers, were gathered for a broader discussion about the potential position. The thought with that meeting was basically to try and poke as many holes as possible into creating this different role, and just to see if it remained a viable choice or if it should just be scrapped. And after discussions were complete, the consensus was that it made sense to continue to move forward and explore next steps in potentially creating this merged role. So as an initial step, a job description was created based on the main duties and tasks that the current role would perform. That is the job description that was added to your packet for review. So why combine? The Development Services Inspection Group is currently doing what they can to complete the tasks and needs that are associated with the associate planner position, basically what that position would have completed. This is in addition to their regular work, and there is a lag in completing tasks at no fault of their own, just due to the current workload that they would normally have. Questions and complaints are often received from citizens who want what they need as quickly as possible, so many of those have been fielded by that group. Our current ordinance officers are out in the field regularly and often see much of the zoning issues that an associate planner would have handled. So for example, when they're out on a call for an animal issue, they may pass a property that is installing a fence or a business that has a sign out in front of it. Right now, those officers do in fact let development services know when they see things or feel like something is off or needs further investigation. So tasks for zoning can be done as needed, which is great. Around the current workload of the ordinance enforcement officers. So they can be creative with their schedules and what they have to do based off of what's the hottest need, and then adjust as things occur. So for example, an immediate need for animal control can bump maybe a fence permit check for that day to maybe the next day. Currently, there are times when workloads flows to the ordinance enforcement officers that may or may not be part of their regular duties, or there are questions on where the workflow should go. So depending on the potential violation, issues, or complaints that have been received, there's sometimes questions that occur of where it should go. So this merged position would make that workflow seamless and simply just flow to the team. So no more wonder if it should flow to a development services position like the associate planner, or if it should go to the ordinance enforcement group. The ordinance enforcement officers currently work with code and enforcement, so the training curve would be easier as they already understand code and ordinances. It would be adding new concepts. Obviously, there would be a training curve, but applicable role. A zoning administrator is mentioned often in our code and is specifically referenced in the associate planner position. So adding the zoning administrator title would save on changes needed to be made to code or anything by simply having that job title as part of this and adding those duties onto the ordinance enforcement officers. Also, by moving these duties from associate planner, which we've had an issue in the past filling, we would be eliminating one position from development services. There would be a split cost for this new position between the police department and development services, and reducing the headcount would potentially save in benefits if that individual would have benefits for a full-time person. And it could be even larger if they did have a family on our benefits. So overall, a win as far as a cost savings. Additionally, by having two individuals that understand zoning administration as well as ordinance enforcement, there would be continuity in duties if one of them were to retire or leave the position. It will remove that gap in coverage that does cause issues. So this position is being brought to this committee with the hopes of being able to move forward with the position. If the decision is made to move forward with an approval to have Common Council approve the position, what I would do is work with McGrath to determine the change in compensation based on the added tasks and duties to that role. I would then provide that compensation recommendation prior to the next Common Council meeting as well. Based on what you've heard today, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. Additionally, we do have the ordinance enforcement officers here if there's any specific questions, as well as other members of the police department. And we're ready to answer any questions you guys have.
All right, thank you, Sarah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so would anyone like to make a motion?
I move to approve.
A second.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Is there anybody with any questions? Go ahead, Natasha.
So thank you for having the meeting where you guys tried to see, is this a great idea or is this a really bad idea? That's fantastic. Thanks for telling us about that meeting. So what I'm hearing is, with the two ordinance officers that we have right now, they have enough flexibility in their daily schedule to take on these zoning calls. Is that what I'm hearing?
Correct.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? Brian, it looked like you were just waiting for a question.
No, I was just, I mean, I don't know your name. Okay. Ms. Wolf, there was shaking her head. She was agreeing with it. If they have time in their schedule, I think it's a great idea.
Okay. Andrew, you have anything? Yeah. Oh, Steve.
Hi there. Can I just add one thing to answering your question, Natasha? It's understood as part of this, and it's been discussed internally, that the things that oftentimes Kayla and Bob do require immediate attention, and those are going to come first. And the duties that we're talking about in terms of a sign issue or a fence issue and some of these things can wait at times. So in other words, the idea of them having capacity, there may be things that they can't do right now. That's okay. Right now they're languishing because we don't have people to do it. And the new model will provide someone to do it. But it doesn't, a lot of the duties that they may get involved in from the planning side don't have to be immediate. And that's why we think it's a good fit.
All right, thank you, Steve. Okay, Andrew, go ahead.
I do. This is more, I'd rather ask it than be quiet and then wonder. I'm assuming based on the fact that there was a meeting prior to this, we're not concerned whatsoever with the split wages, if that makes sense.
Right. We do that with several internal positions where they're split between two departments or even more than that. So there's definitely the ability to do it. And again, this would be a kind of a win as far as the budget goes overall.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Anyone else? Okay, with that, we do have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, that passes 5-0. All right. Number 11, request to recommend council approval of agreement for maintenance assessment services with forward appraisal through June 30th, 2024, presented by Steve Barg, City Administrator. Steve.
Thank you. Well, until December 31st of 2021, our assessing needs were handled by GRODA. You may remember Jim Toth was a representative handling our account. And then we signed on with forward appraisal. Steve Shepro and his team started on January 1st of 2022. They signed on with us an agreement for 2 years in a sense. And I guess in my mind, I was always thinking about being 2 years. But at the time they brought it up, the intent was 2 cycles of going through evaluations and open book, board of review, those kind of things. So it was written actually ultimately as an 18-month agreement from January 1 of 2022 through June 30th of 2023. So it's technically expired. And I think that framework kind of threw me off. maybe it threw them off briefly as well. They've been working so hard on the revaluation in recent months. But anyway, we've talked about this. They are willing to extend the current agreement at the current terms, no change in cost or anything from now till June 30th of 2024, which is a year from July 1. But of course, we're 45 days into that right now. And that would give us time then to decide what we want to do next steps in terms of what happens after July 1, 2024. Do we go out for bids again? Do we re-up with them? Without doing so, that would be our call. There's no specific direction in terms of how often we have to bid out services like assessing and auditing and those types of things. So the request here is fairly simple: to extend the current agreement, same terms, same price, through June 30th of 2024. My recommendation would be the committee recommending council approval to do so.
All right. Ed?
So moved.
So we have a motion. We have a second by Andrew. Any questions? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed like sign? None? Okay, 5-0. 12, request to recommend council approval of appointing members to the Shared Ride Taxi RFP Evaluation Committee presented by Steve Bark, City Administrator. Steve, you again.
Thank you very much. Well, at the last council meeting, I think it was noted by the mayor perhaps that we were looking for people to fill the slots for a request for proposals for the taxi service. Every 5 years, we have to go through this. It's by DOT regulations. No matter how satisfied you might be with the provider, it's part of the program. So we've been with the Running Incorporated folks for 10 years now, 2 5-year terms. The current one will expire on December 31st of this year. So by state regulations, we need to go out and look for proposals. And it's not a bad thing because there are other providers across the state that do shared ride taxi services. We've seen other applicants in the past, and I imagine we will going forward. So anyway, the way we did this back 5 years ago in 2018 was to have a committee made up of 5 members: the mayor, the chair of finance, budget, and personnel, or their designee, the chair of Board of Public Works, or their designee, and then the city administrator and the finance director. This will be for meetings that we will have, probably a couple at least, maybe 3, who knows, in the fall as we go through the process and then ultimately get proposals to review and go through the applicants for being our taxi provider as of 1/1/24. So Lois has spoken with the chairs of both Finance and Board of Public Works, and Rebecca Spiros and Mike Fire have graciously agreed to serve. So the recommendation to this body is to recommend council approval of the Shared Ride Taxi RFP Committee to be comprised of Mayor Lois Teestrake, Chair of this committee, Rebecca Spiros, Chair of Board of Public Works, Mike Fire, Finance Director Jennifer Selensky, and myself.
Okay,
Motion to approve.
so we have a motion and we have a second. Are there any questions? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, like sign, seeing none.
Thank you.
Number 13. Adjourn to closed session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute Chapter 19.851C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, most specific to establish pay rate for the street superintendent. Is there a motion to go into closed? By Ed, and there's a second by Brian. Any questions? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign, seeing none, we will move into closed session. So everybody's back. We are reconvened into open session. Item number 15, action on items discussed in closed session if appropriate.
All right, I move that we will give the new street superintendent, we would start them at pay grade 134, step 4.
So we have a motion. Is there a
Second.
second? Second by Brian. Is there any questions? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none, that passes. 16, suggested items for future agendas.
Yeah, nothing.
Anybody? All right. A motion to adjourn
Yes.
by Brian, second by Natasha. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, we are done.